Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Reds Reloaded, the podcast where we talk about everything Cincinnati Reds. I am your host, Kyle Luther, a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. This is Chandler Patrick. He is also a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. Now, guys, we're going to talk about the Cardinals and Mets series. Guys, wasn't terrible, but there are some things that the Reds need to fix. So I'm going to go through the scores like I always do, and then we'll turn it over to Chandler. So Cardinals series. That first game was postponed, but replayed the next day as a doubleheader. The Reds lost 1-8 the first game, and then won 7-6 the next game. The Mets series, won 7-2, won 7-2, and then lost 2-4. My biggest takeaway, and I think Chandler will agree with me, my biggest takeaway is runners left on base. Between those two series, guys, we'll get right into it. Between those two series, we left 45 runners on base. I mean, there's nothing to it but to say that's awful. It's completely awful, and Chandler, you got a little more about that.
Yeah, I just went through game by game, right? We talk about runners in scoring position. We talk about men left on base in total. So what's really wild about that first game? We were 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position, and we left 3 on base. And then moving forward, when you look at the next game of the Cardinals series, we did a little bit better from an overall offensive standpoint, right? We were able to get more runs on the board. Credit, again, pitching giving up 8 runs doesn't help the ball club. But to at least have a fight in it, we saw that in the second game of that series. You know, even though the pitching gave up 6 runs, we came away with a 7-6 win. 3 for 11 in that second game with runners in scoring position, and we left 10 on base. And then against the Mets, I'm just double checking to make sure I have these typed up right. Going line by line. But yeah, against the Mets, 1 for 8, 5 left on base in that first game. We won 7-2, but 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position is not what I like to see. I'm a big fan of hitting while guys are on base, especially while they're on scoring position, right? At that point, with the speed of a lot of the players on the team that we have, all you need is a poke, right? You get a base hit up the middle, dude scoring from second base, right? It's one thing to leave somebody on base if they're on first base. That okay. But when you're looking at a guy being on second or on third, it's scoring position for a reason, right? It has that label because it's the easiest spots for those guys to, you just get a base knock and they're scoring. It doesn't necessarily take a double or a home run to score these guys. So it becomes inexcusable to be this poor with runners in scoring position. The second game against the Mets, we were 6 for 16 with 10 left on base, and in that last game, we were 3 for 15 with 17 left on base. As I'm sure some of you might have seen on our Facebook, I created a post that I put out there. It becomes inexcusable, right? That last game against the Mets, big difference. We'll just compare the second game against the Mets versus the last game. 6 for 16, 10 left on base. We win 7-2. 3 for 15, 17 left on base. We lose 4-2. That's, at the end of the day, the complete difference. And the kicker of that game against the Mets, they were 0 for 4. 4 left on base in that game. It was home runs. So they had 2 big flies that happened. Some miscues that end up being to our detriment. But overall, um, they it's not like their performance was in any way going to completely take us out of commission for the entirety of that game. Andrew Abbott pitched pretty well, and we just did not follow up with that from an offensive standpoint. He continued having a great month. Our offense just went back to being a little inconsistent. For the most part, overall, against the Cardinals and the Mets, we had a solid offense in 3 out of those 5 games that we played. Truly. But when we lost 8-1, we lost 4-2. Big thing that stands out. It's not just the pitching. That's easy to queue up for the first game against the Cardinals, but especially when you look at that last game against the Mets, that's where the offense could have done something, and we just truly let the team down in that regard. But we still took the series against the Mets. Pitching was solid against the Mets, but it struggled against the Cardinals. We did see with the first game getting postponed, we played a doubleheader, and then the third game against the Cardinals was postponed, and I believe they're making that up in August. So we saw Brady Singer get skipped. We talked about his struggles the last few episodes. I don't want to say that was a key contributor to our success, but it definitely helped us out going into that Mets series and being able to put a little bit better of a pitching staff in there. At the end of the day, 2 earned runs allowed, 2 earned runs allowed, 4 earned runs allowed. That's not terrible for where our pitching staff had been. I'll take that line in a series.
Right. I I mean, at the end of the day, our lineup has a problem right now. We have a few guys performing, but we have struggles in that lineup that need to be addressed ASAP. Why is TJ Friedel still in the MLB? Why is Matt McClain up? Why is Spencer Steer up? They are not performing. You got guys like Blake Dunn who's performing, and look where Blake Dunn started the season. AAA. And you got Marte down in AAA doing well. You got Edwin Arroyo down in AAA doing well. And I think that's our biggest issue right now. We have guys in the MLB. Why are we still relying on them if they're not going to do well? Put them down in AAA and bring the guys up that need to come up.
If it was up to me, it would be a temporary thing that we would do. But the more we've talked about it, the more I think about it. And I've seen some other people kind of agree with the sentiments. Send Friedel and McClain down. Just give them a chance to get that everyday playing time and try to figure their swing out. And it happens for a lot of guys. They figure it out in AAA. Now, whether that translates when they get back to the big leagues or not, that could be different. But a lot of guys, they do figure it out, and it sometimes motivates them. Sometimes that's that kick in the rear end that gets people going, right? And I think maybe taking the pressure off games in AAA, not that they're meaningless, but they're not as meaningful or as pressurized maybe as a big league game. So if those guys are able to relax and not stress over being sent down too much, let it get in their heads too much, anything like that, and they can just go down there and relax and perform and get into the groove and get where they need to be, I think that'd be great for them. Because at the end of the day, you mentioned Arroyo, Marte. There's other guys that we have in the minor leagues that could absolutely perform at the big league level right now, in my opinion, at least to some extent. We have depth offensively, and unfortunately, we just don't have the best options out there right now, I don't think.
What do you think our biggest need is right now in our lineup? What do you think our biggest need is? Like, do you think outfield's a need? Do you think infield's a need? What do you think?
From an overall sense, I would say I think there's a good argument that outfield would be the biggest need from an overall standpoint. Um, Steer plays better in the infield than he does the outfield. Now, he's great to have as a utility player. Don't get me wrong. In no way am I ever going to knock Spencer Steer. He's been one of my favorite players ever since 2023. Really, um, you don't hear him complain. He agrees to really he brings it on. Like he's like, hey, like I'm up for the challenge. I want to play all over the place. Um, so you'll see him play Gold Glove caliber defense at first. You'll see him play at second. You can see him play at third. You'll see him play corner outfield. But outfield wise, and especially like defensively, I think maybe could be where we would need the most improvement overall. Um, at that point, if we made those moves and sent those guys down, theoretically, we would want to see Edwin Arroyo get called up and play like second base or maybe even third, and then get Noelvi Marte out in the outfield. But if we only were to call up one of those guys right now, in my opinion, it would be Noelvi. He's already seen big league pitching. I think he's figured it out in AAA enough. Edwin Arroyo, he's just playing so well though. It's hard to not want to call him up as well.
Right. And I'll go through some guys' stats in the last 7 games in our lineup. So you have Blake Dunn performing very well. He has 5 games, 2 runs, 7 hits, a 304 average, and a 664 OPS. You have Tyler Stevenson, who's actually really been doing well. He started off the season slow, but he's really found his swing. He's 7 games. In the last 7 games, he played 4 games, 4 hits, 4 RBIs, 286 average, 643 slugging, and he has over 1,000 OPS. Nate Lowe in the last 7 games. He has five hits, 4 walks, 385 average, and he has over 1,000 OPS. I mean, you got guys performing now that were struggling at the beginning of the season that we questioned. We were like, are they
Yeah.
going to ever find their swing? And now they are, and now the guys that were performing aren't performing anymore. Sal Stewart's not doing anything. Ellie's barely doing anything. Spencer Steer's not doing anything. TJ Friedel's not doing anything. I could go through the whole lineup of people who are not doing anything that need to go down to AAA and find their swing and be able to have those guys that are doing well in AAA get called up and see what they can do in the MLB and be able to perform at the big league level.
Yeah, so you talk about guys that are cooling off, right? JJ Bleday is one of those guys. In his last 7 games that he's played, um, he's hitting 241, 1 homer, 2 RBIs. So, you know, obviously talked about it before, right? These guys that get hot, it's not going to stay like that. It's how they can limit their cold stretches. There's, what makes great hitters great performers really at any level of any sport, right? You see the same thing with golf. You know, they talk about the great players, they'll still have some mishits, but how much can they minimize and limit those mishits, right? So, same thing kind of goes for baseball. The best players, their down stretches aren't as bad as some players' down stretches, right? Just the same as their great stretches are better than a lot of guys' great stretches would be. So, you know, Blade, even though he's struggling right now, it's not like he's hitting sub 200. It's not like he's performing absolutely terribly, but he is cooling off a little bit. So at that point, we're looking at, like we've mentioned numerous episodes now, who steps it up in their place, right? When one guy starts struggling, we have to have other people that are going to step it up. But I don't want to see us get into a spot where we're dependent on certain players. We saw that for many years with the Reds when Joey Votto was our big guy, right? He's our star player. Everybody's kind of relying on the job to get done by Joey Votto. Then you had like Suarez who stepped up and whatnot. But for a lot of it, it's kind of like, oh, it's Joey. He's got it. He'll put the team on his back. We need more guys that are going to step it up, because if somebody starts cooling off, who at that point we're not winning games if we don't have offense after that. Tyler Stevenson has been arguably the most disappointing player in my opinion. A lot of guys, yeah, they can get off to cold starts and things like that, but I've always wanted Stevenson to be this great player. The unfortunate thing that we've seen is he had his concussion in 2022 when he was playing amazing that year. He had a concussion when he got taken out at home plate in San Diego, I believe. And then he broke his clavicle on a foul tip that hit him in the just in the right spot of his chest protector. So offensively, he hasn't been the same player since then. Closest that we saw was in 2024. Steer, he's having a bounce back year this year. Now he's cooled off the last few games, but you look at a lot of these guys. Ellie's solid season this year from an overall standpoint. We're not necessarily just talking about right now. Sal Stewart, Nate Lowe, Blade, Steer. But then you get into McLean, Stevenson, Dane Myers is up and down. They try to get him a lot of playing time against lefties, but he's been having more success against righties. Gino's still struggling. Benson, another guy that you could talk about sending down, right? His batting average is lower than Friedel's now. Speaking of Friedel, he's won Hayes, Reese Hines when he was at the big league level for us, Noelvi Marte, Trevino, only hitting 138 in the games that he's played. Of course, he's been injured, but you look at PJ Higgins, he's been our best offensive catcher so far this year from an overall standpoint. It's very limited, but he's hitting 294. He's 5 for 17. I'll take that. Blake Dunn, like you mentioned, he's 17 for 51 this year, hitting 333, man. He has 2 doubles, a triple, a home run. I mean, they talked about how he found his swing again, and he made some mechanical adjustments in AAA, and it's allowed him to have a lot of success, and it's translated over to the big leagues. And what did we talk about earlier in this episode, right? Some of these guys, maybe just send them down to AAA, get them some reps down there, let them figure it out, and then call them back up. Because, again, the minor leagues is development, right? Yeah, they have their own postseasons, but the end all for a lot of these guys is the big leagues. You know, that's where the games mean the most. If somebody's not performing at the big league level, send them down, let them figure it out, and then get them back in the big leagues. And at that point, we're not wasting at bats on somebody who is completely struggling like that. At a certain point, you can try to get them to just keep performing and see if they work out of it at the big league level, but it's clearly not working for some of these guys.
No, it's not, and that's. I mean, you talk about catching standpoint. Uh, we have catchers in minors. Alfredo Duno, he's in. I believe he's in Dayton right now. That he hasn't got called up in Chattanooga. Yeah, Chattanooga. But the problem with the Reds is we have guys that'll perform really, 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 really well, and then they'll just go on a cold snap. Welcome to being a Reds fan.
Yeah.
It's been going on for years, years and years on end. We see it every year. But if we can get the guys, and I think it's ultimately on our coaching staff. I'm not gonna put all the blame on Tito. I'm really not. Um, I talk about it every episode. Chris Valleca, not the answer. Um, but it's like, let's send these guys down to the minors, let them figure it out, and then let's bring them back up. They get a fair shot. I'm all about bringing them back up because at the end of the day, fans love to see them, and we would want to see. So we talk about sending Friedel down. We talk about sending Matt McLean down. We talk about sending Steer down. Those are guys I want to see up in the MLB too. But at
Right.
the end of the day, if they need to go down to find their swing, send them down. We're still going to root for them in Louisville, but they need to find their swing if we want to compete at a level of a championship caliber team. We're not competing at that championship caliber team. Yes, we have a winning record right now. I think most of that is our pitching's doing really well right now, but we need help from the lineup to be able to perform well at the end of the day.
Yeah. So real quick, I'll run over some stats for you. I was looking at them a bit before. So we obviously talk about runners in scoring position. We talk about men being left on base, things like that, right? So I can sort this real quick. So South Stewart is hitting 264 with runners in scoring position. Ellie's hitting 271. Stevenson's hitting 229. Benson, I ain't even going to say his batting average. All you need to know is he's 1 for 22. Bladay's hitting 364. Dane Myers is hitting 318. Steer's hitting 280. Gino's hitting 222. Blake Dunn's hitting 250. Friedel, 2 for 26. Ke'Bryan Hayes, 4 for 25. PJ Higgins is 2 for 5 so far. Reese Hines was 2 for 10. Obviously not on the team anymore, but still, when we're talking about season-wide performance from everybody, Nate Lowe, 343. Noelvi was 0 for 4 before he got sent down. Matt McLean is 8 for 46. And Trevino is 1 for 9 so far. So you look at a lot of these guys, it's very up and down, right? Like we talk about all the time. Some guys are performing, some guys are not. From an overall sense, we have a few guys that are hitting really well with runners in scoring position. Everybody else, not so much. Some of that just comes down to maybe what we've mentioned in previous episodes with a lineup rearrangement. Maybe sometimes it's set up where when these guys are in scoring position, maybe the wrong guys are stepping up to the plate after those guys trying to drive them in. Maybe, we just go back into the whole conversation of rearranging the lineup.
Right, and we talked about this too, and I talked about this when the Reds acquired Gino. I said he needs to hit behind Ellie because he was a bat that could perform behind Ellie because we didn't have that bat last year behind Ellie.
Right.
Uh, I don't think that's the play right now because Suarez isn't performing either. He hasn't performed since he came back.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't believe he has any hits in his games that he's played coming back from injury this past time.
He had he's had a couple.
Did he have a couple of
He's
hits the last few games? I
yeah.
didn't. I didn't think he did.
Let me go game by game real quick. So he came back for the Cardinal series, right? We talked about that last episode.
Yeah.
Um, his success was more in the Mets series. So he was 0 for 2, then 0 for 1 against the Cardinals. Um, and then against the Mets, he went 2 for 3 with a double, 2 runs scored, um, and he drew a walk. And then the second game against the Mets, he went 2 for 5 with a double, 2 RBIs. In the third game against the Mets, he was 0 for 3, but he had 2 walks and struck out once. Um, so a little up and down, right? But he's kind of shown he's a little bit different than he was beforehand because in April he played most of that month, right? He played the 1st through the 22nd before he went on the IL, and then he was out for a month. He only had 8 walks, and he was hitting 243. So far in his 5 games back, he already has 4 walks and a 286 average.
Right.
So, and I've talked about it numerous times, right? I'm a big fan of limiting strikeouts and drawing a lot of walks. It helps. It's being a team player, right? It's not a selfish way to play by any means. It's a very team oriented way of playing. He has as many walks as he has strikeouts so far since being back. I love to see that personally. Um, I don't care about the home runs from Suarez because we know how Gino is. If he's locked in, the home runs will come regardless. I prefer Suarez when he's just trying to hit line drives and go gap to gap. The ball, if he just elevates it a little bit and hits it with some backspin, it's going to leave. But I just want him to hit the ball hard on a line. I was actually just mentioning it on X when talking to somebody about it because they were also mentioning how his power numbers have been a little wonky. Gino's at his best when he's hitting line drives, just going for good, solid hits, and the home runs are just appearing. He wasn't a home. Somebody's firing guns out. Um, but I don't know if you guys could hear that or not. I just heard a bang outside of my house. But Suarez, his most success, it came when home runs just started appearing. Last year, he hit 228 with 49 homers, but that's not what Gino was his first time around with the Reds, right? His first year, he hit 280. And then when you look at 2017, when the power numbers started really showing up, he hit 260, 26 homers. Next year, he hit 283 with 34 homers. The next year, he hit 271 with 49 homers. Gino's ultimately at his best on a consistent basis when he's just going for all around good stats. He's not trying to hit home runs. We saw it when he started out the year in Cincinnati. It's like he was trying too hard to hit home runs. And I appreciate him putting that pressure on himself to perform well coming back to Cincinnati. Shows that he really truly wants to do big things in his return here. but he doesn't want to. He doesn't need to try too hard, because at that point, that's where his results are going to get very, very iffy. Not every year are you going to necessarily get away with hitting 228 with 49 homers. A lot of times you hit 228, those home runs aren't there. You're not seeing playing time.
Right.
He, in my opinion, last year it kind of more or less was he just so happened to hit 49 home runs while hitting 228. That's how Gino is. The home runs, they're just they're just going to happen regardless. But from an overall standpoint, let's get those walks up. 2017, he drew 84 walks that year. 2019, when he hit 49 home runs, he drew 70 walks. Last year, he hit the same amount of home runs, but he only drew 46 walks, and he struck out 196 times.
And I think
So, yeah,
that was the biggest thing with Gino coming in was his strikeouts. His strikeouts were a concern coming into the season when we acquired him.
they've
But
been an issue ever since 2019 when he started hitting a lot more home runs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think we have guys in the lineup that really do well drawing walks. Nate Lowe's one of those. Nate Lowe,
JJ Bleday.
yeah, they draw walks very good, and I wish guys would feed off of that and just focus on watching the ball come down the plate. Um, because I think if we drew more walks, I think guys would be. I wouldn't say necessarily be willing to hit the ball more, but at the end of the day, that's what we want to do is hit the ball more. I mean, we left 45 runners on base during those two series. I think if we drew more walks, we'd be like, okay, maybe we do need to hit. Maybe we do need to do a little more at the plate. But we have a lot of guys try to swing for the fences too. And I'm just like you. I'd rather see more walks than I would home runs. I want to see more singles. I want to see more doubles, more triples. I'd rather see all that rather than home runs.
It's what makes the offense go around, right? It sets the tone. You draw a walk, you get on base, especially if it's like a 4 pitch walk.
Mm-hmm.
But especially if you battle against a pitcher, you're running up the pitch count, right? And also, it's going to put something in that pitcher's mind that if he loses you, he's got to go right at the next guy, and he might leave a pitch out over the plate for that next guy because he doesn't want to lose two in a row, right? Run up the pitch count, get guys pulled early, make them work extra. The more pitches that you see, the more chances there are that that pitcher is going to make a mistake.
Right.
Obviously, you have to be ready to capitalize on that mistake, but you don't want to go up there chasing a lot of bad pitches. If you're chasing a lot and you're striking out or grounding out, chasing balls below the zone, whatever it may be, you're not setting things up for success. You're creating easy outs for the opposing pitcher, and you're putting yourself in a spot where if you make contact, it's probably not going to be very good contact. It's going to be weak. It's going to be easy for the defense to make a play on that ball. Try to run up those pitch counts. Try to draw those at bats out more, and then we'll be able to see like Sal Stewart. He has success hitting with runners in scoring position, but he also leads the team in 10 walks with runners in scoring position. That's the
Right.
maturity that he has. Ellie is getting into that point where he's gaining that maturity. He's drawn 7 walks with runners in scoring position. Tyler Stevenson has drawn 6 walks. So has Will Benson. So those are got Blade in his time up so far. He's drawn 4. So you don't always necessarily have to play selfish. Um, Lowe's drawn 5 walks. McLean has drawn 9. I like to see that with runners in scoring position. Obviously, you want to drive those runs in, right? But I also like to see where guys aren't trying too hard to force it. If it's not in the zone, take the free pass. Yeah, you have runners in scoring position, but the next guy up, not only does he have runners in scoring position, but now he has another person on base that he can drive in. So I don't know. I know maybe a little bit more of the old school mentality with that. And don't get me wrong, I love the analytics and the going for home runs and the way that the game is progressing overall. But like a lot of times, those old school mentalities of drawing walks and running up those pitch counts, it truly leads to success. You look at it across the board with a lot of games and a lot of different teams. You find a lot of success with that stuff. Truly, like at the end of the day, it might sound simple and like a stupid old head mentality thought process, but it's truly it's truly something that changes ball games. It's a momentum shift. It puts pressure on the opposing team and their pitching staff, and at that point, it gives you more opportunities that you can capitalize on. It's really what it is.
Right. Uh, so we talked about the hitting, but we also have some inconsistencies with the pitching. So, first of all, I'm going to say Chase Burns is our ace, 1010%. I don't we don't know what Hunter
He's a
Green's
Cy
going to do.
Young contender.
Yeah. So, his stats over 11 games that he's pitched. 1.96 ERA. He's 7-1 and 72 strikeouts. He is our ace. Now, granted, we don't know what Hunter Green's going to do when he comes back. And I'm not saying Brandon Williamson's a ace in our rotation, but we don't know what he's going to do when he comes back. Those are two pitchers that we haven't seen this year, if at all. But we don't know what they're going to do. But we do have some inconsistencies with pitching that needs to be addressed. So, Chandler, what do you have on the? I know you have some stuff on the bullpen.
Yeah, so a lot of our bullpen pieces, right? We've talked about how they've been struggling this year, right? Graham Ashcraft, even though he's had his struggles, he's limited it compared to a lot of these guys, right? We saw Connor Phillips got sent down, right? He had a 5.53 ERA. Graham Ashcraft has limited his to a 3.33. Brock Burke has turned out to be a great pickup for us. He's had his ups and downs, but he has a 3.60 ERA. One thing about Brock Burke, the opposing hitters hitting 226 against him. Ashcraft still has, I believe, let's see here, the second lowest opponent batting average against him. We're not going to include Caleb Ferguson because he just came back. So if you take him out of it, Graham Ashcraft has the second lowest opponent batting average against him. It's lower than Chase Burns. His is 184. Ashcraft's at a 183, and then Sam Maul's the only one with batting average against him lower than that, and that's at a 176. Sam Maul's been phenomenal this year. 2.55 ERA, 1.05 WHIP. Santillan, he's struggling. His ERA is well above 5 now. Pierce Johnson, solid for the most part, right? 3.27 ERA, 1.23 WHIP. Luis May, I'm just gonna leave it at a shake of the head on that one. Zach Maxwell, you could say the same thing for. He's allowed 5 hits in 1 2/3 innings. 3 walks allowed. he's clearly just not ready.
Is
I
his
know a lot of
ERA
people.
still? Sorry to
Uh,
interrupt you.
no, you're fine. It's a 27.
Yeah, I knew it
Not
was
not
high.
like it's not a .27. It's not a 2.70. No, it's a 27.00. Uh, his zeros are in the wrong place. If we're being honest, right? Um, it, it's just not good, right?
No,
Caleb
no.
Ferguson being back is a great thing to see. TJ Antone's had his struggles, but he still only has 7 2/3 innings pitched so far. So we need to give him a little bit more time to see where his numbers are truly going to lie. Because all it takes is one or two bad outings, and his numbers are going to look really high at this point. But as we move on through the season, we need to see more success out of our bullpen because we've mentioned it the last few episodes. It's been trending the wrong direction. And the starting rotation, I mean, we mentioned it, right? Chase Burns, Cy Young candidate. Andrew Abbott, he's been locked in this month. He's turned his season around and took his ERA from where it was, I believe, in the high sixes down to a sub 4. It's at a 3.88 now. Um, Brady Singer, we've talked about his struggles. We skipped his start in the last two series. So, it kind of gives him an opportunity to just get some work in without being in an in-game scenario. And hopefully he's able to bounce back for his next start. Rhett Lauder's ERA was a 5.40. Currently, he's rehabbing from injury. He had some shoulder issues. Nick Lodolo, he's had what? Just a couple rough starts. His first start back, he had just allowed two-run shots. I wouldn't really hold that too much against him, but from his last few appearances, I think we're seeing a bit more of what we were hoping to see, especially after like last season. We saw him break out in 2022. He pitched well. Realistically, he pitched well, better than Hunter Green did that year, in my opinion. And then we saw a lot of injury issues and ups and downs. But then last year, he put together a solid season. So we were wondering what we were going to expect when he came back from this blister issue. So I'll go start by start for him. He went 5 1/3, 4 earned runs against the Astros. Then he went 4 innings, 5 earned runs against the Nationals. Against the Phillies, he went 5 2/3, allowing 3 earned runs. He was 1 out away from a quality start. And then against the Mets, he's had his best start back so far. 6 earned runs, or 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, and 7 strikeouts. A lot to like, especially with these last two starts from Nick Lodolo. He's performing a lot better, and I think he's finding his groove finally. So that's going to help us out a lot. It doesn't change the fact that we were talking about it before we even hopped on here to record this episode. Some of the guys, they're just not performing and giving us the opportunity. We went on that stretch where starts where Andrew Abbott made and Chase Burns, they were the only ones where we were having like a winning chance. Every start that was made by anybody else, we had lost. So we can't obviously sustain things, especially if our offense isn't always going to be able to hold it up, right? We're in an opposite situation from the start of the year. We relied on the pitching. Now it's like we have to rely on the offense. We're, one or two pitchers away in the starting rotation, finding their solid groove to us being truly that contender that we should be. Another thing that I want to annotate I believe I mentioned it last episode because we had talked about the ABS system, right? So I saw this on Wednesday. Tyler Stevenson has 32, at least at that point, he had 32 successful challenges, which ranked second among all Major League Baseball catchers. Um, and then his 78% success rate was also second among catchers. Um, Even though Stevenson has had his issues at the plate, that was his strong suit beforehand, and catching wasn't really his strong suit. Fielding has been his more of his strong suit this year than it normally had been. His framing is still considered one of the worst in the league, but we have the ABS system,
Right.
right? So framing is kind of being phased out and almost looked at as essentially irrelevant unless you've ran out of challenges. His pop time isn't that great, but he's still in the 82nd percentile at caught stealing above average, and he is the best at blocks above average. He's in the 100th percentile. He is better than all the other catchers in that regard. We're seeing like a complete like flip, right? We brought in Trevino to be that great defensive catcher, and Stevenson would provide the offense. Not that Stevenson, in my opinion, was ever terrible behind the plate, but metrics never really favored him. This year, it's been defense first for him. So at least he's providing some value. His chase rate is looking great. His walk rate has been great this year. He has a lot of metrics that put him in a good spot, but he's striking out a lot, and his batting average just hasn't been that great. I think there's some unluck involved. There's some little tweaks that he needs to make, but he's providing that big need that we had with Trevino being out. Because Trevino, he was a big part of helping these pitchers be successful between last year and this year. With him missing so much time due to injury, Stevenson's been able to step it up behind the plate and provide that extra value for those pitchers and help their starts go by easier. And I love to see that because if we were in the bottom barrel of success rates with Stevenson when it came to ABS, our pitching staff could look even worse than it currently does.
Right. You talk about the Facebook post. Uh, you made that one. I did see that. Um, I made one, and it got a lot of attention. And I want to talk about it. I want to ask you on the pod. But so, if you had to bring one player back in their prime, who would you bring back?
Yeah, so when I saw that post, one name came to mind instantly, and then a second one appeared right after that. They both fall in the same category. We've mentioned the bullpen struggles, right?
Mhm.
That has probably been our biggest need that we've had here recently out of all of it. So if we're still having games where we're scoring 7 runs, okay. Like I'm okay if we leave the offense alone. Pitching, again, the bullpen, Raisel Iglesias and Aroldis Chapman were the two names that came to mind. Instant guys that are able to come in, they be your closer, and they've had a lot of success. We all know Aroldis Chapman. Many of us still remember Raisel Iglesias on the Reds. But something else that I saw recently, Raisel Iglesias had tied Aroldis Chapman for the second most consecutive successful um, saves completed by a player born in Cuba. Um, Raisel Iglesias and Aroldis Chapman, I know the post is like bring them back in their prime. These guys
Right.
are still performing like they're in their prime.
Right.
I'm not even thinking bring a player from the dead or a player out of retirement. Like there's current players that the Reds have had in the past that are still performing really well at the big league level. I'm completely fine looking at those guys. The one I mentioned was Raisel Iglesias just because he's more affordable. But if I pull up Iglesias' stats year by year, it kind of gets mind blowing that we even got rid of him to begin with. Um, we we virtually gave him up for next to nothing. So he came in with the Reds as a starter in 2015, and he pitched pretty well as a starter. 2016, he had moved to the bullpen. He was a starter at the beginning of the year. He was injured. He came back and worked his way into our closer role. He had a 2.53 ERA. The next year, he had a 2.49 ERA with 28 saves, 2.38 ERA with 30 saves. 2019, he struggled. A lot of people hated him because he had 12 losses on the year. He was getting brought in a lot of situations where the ball game was tied. It's not like he was blowing more saves than he normally had been, really. He had 34 saves. He blew 6 of them, blew 6 opportunities. But that ERA of 4.16, it didn't completely tell the whole story. And I knew that we should hold on to him. During the COVID year, he had a 2.74 ERA with 8 saves out of 10 attempts. We traded him to the Angels. He had a 2.57 ERA with 34 saves. 2022, he gets traded during the season to the Braves. He had a 2.47 ERA overall, a 0.34 with the Braves that year. 2023, he had a 2.75 ERA with 33 saves. The next year, a 1.95 ERA with 34 saves. And then a 3.21, and then this year, a 1.08 so far. A career ERA of 2.86. He has 262 saves out of 300 opportunities and a 1.04 whip.
Right.
I don't know about you, but the success he's had recently, it's like he hasn't lost a step from when he was having success with the Reds. He's not getting any younger, but he's still performing well at 36. I'd bring him back. I've mentioned it numerous times the last few years. It took us some time to find our new closer. We got Alexis Diaz. That was good for about a year and 5 months. And then after that, we've been in a limbo stage. We have Pagan, but with him being injured and his struggles he had earlier in the year, Raisel Iglesias is still balling out, man.
Right. Right.
We could have just held on to him. We could have just held on to him. Aroldis Chapman, my thing about Chapman was more or less he would have been more expensive. And obviously he's a little bit older than Iglesias. But regardless, either one of those guys, former Reds, big bullpen pieces that had tons of success. Chapman has a 2.48 ERA. This year he has a 0.51 ERA. And I don't think last time I checked, which was a few days ago, he hadn't blown a single save all season so far.
Right.
Both those guys have had tons of success this year. They both would change this ball club, especially in that bullpen. So, in my opinion, that's my pick. What would your pick be before we get into the comments from some people?
So, obviously, we talked about outfield help. I think Griffey Jr. would be my pick for the outfield. Because in his prime with the Reds, when he first started with the Reds, it was phenomenal. Um, he ended up hitting I believe, his 600 career home run with the Reds. Because they had a little like thing in between the power stacks. Yeah, that's how old we are. Believe it or
Yeah,
not.
it was it was he hit his 500th and his 600th. I don't remember if he hit his 400th with us or not. I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. I think he was with the
Cuz
Mariners.
he had so many injuries with us that limited his playing time. I did projections based on if he would have stayed healthy and at the pace that he was at in the seasons that he played with the Reds. I want to say he would have finished with like 700 home runs or like close to it if he would have stayed healthy. Um, that was his big unfortunate thing with the Reds overall was his health. But yeah, I mean, I love that pick. You know, you
Yeah.
give me Ken Griffey Jr. in his prime still, and um, if he's healthy, I mean that definitely changes the whole offense and even defensively. That defense is insane too.
So I got another pick. I picked two. I picked a pitcher too, and he's still available to this day, but the Reds won't bring him back. I'm talking about Trevor Bauer. I think Trevor deserves play, and he already said he would take the league minimum, which I mean that you can't say no to somebody like that, and he brings that juice into the rotation, and I think he would be a quality replacement for Brady Singer. So we would have
Yeah,
those guys. We would have those guys that perform very well, and we would have quality starters.
his his fan base is something else, right? They follow him wherever he goes. Whatever team he's playing on or league, the attention that he gets and his popularity that follows him to those teams. So it got big when he was playing in Japan, right? People were watching more Japanese baseball, um, watching from the States, right? Same thing with when he went to Mexico, and now the same thing with him playing in independent ball for the Long Island Ducks. Uh, we've talked about it, just over the phone with each other. We both like Trevor Bauer a lot. Um, Obviously, some stuff happened that derailed his professional career there for a bit. We know what the results of all that stuff ended up being. We also know that at this point, the only thing keeping him out of Major League Baseball truly is the teams and Major League Baseball itself. I think Bauer has made enough adjustments professionally and personally, but mainly professionally, that it's more okay to have him in the league now. I know he would call out Major League Baseball before, and it was a bit more like, you know, controversial, really. Um, but from an all around sense, now you watch him play and his interviews and stuff. The dude just wants to play,
Right.
and he wants to compete. And if it means that he needed to be more professional, he worked on it. And regardless, he brings attention to whatever team he's playing on. He brings in money, and he brings in success. And we saw it regardless of wherever he's played, but we saw it when he was on the Reds. He's not just a pitcher that plays at a high level. He's also essentially a hitting coach or a pitching coach,
Hmm.
right? He's essentially a pitching coach because he has so much knowledge, and he loves to break down mechanics and help others achieve more success on their end. I see it all the time in his videos when he was playing in Japan, when he was playing in Mexico. he talked about it when he was with the Reds. He breaks things down for guys and helps them understand maybe things that they weren't understanding before. And coming from a pitcher standpoint, he can give them cues on what helps a certain pitch maybe perform better, what they need to figure out, and he's able to give them those tips to find that success. So not only would he bring um, stats from his own end, um, but he would also help improve the stats of everybody else on the ball club.
Right. So we're gonna get into what people said. There's some interesting ones. So I've seen while you were talking, I was going through the three group posts that I made. Um, saw a lot of Brandon Phillips.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of Frank Robinsons. Saw a lot of Johnny Benches, uh, Pete Rose. Um, but one that stuck out to me. Um, my dad actually commented on it and said Eric Davis. Eric Davis would be a great one. But here's one that I will be completely honest. I've been a Reds fan all my life, but I have never heard this name. Maybe somebody can tell me. Maybe Chandler can tell me. Um, so a guy that I know, he is really close to me. Kevin Mitchell. Does that name ring a bell?
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't say that I typically think of him with the Reds as much as I think of him with like the Giants. But yeah, he was on the Reds in 93 and 94. He played very well with the Reds. Um, and he played part of the 96 season with the Reds. Um, so with the Giants, that's where he won MVP in '89. But that was kind of like the main bulk team that he played for the most. The Reds was the second most that he played with. In 225 games with the Reds, he hit 332 with a 414 on base, 631 slugging, and a 1.045 OPS. So, from an all around sense, stat wise, he had the most success with the Reds. He didn't have the most playing time. Um, he had 30 homers in 95 games in 94.
Yeah.
So, he didn't play the longest with us, but he had kind of the most success. A 332 batting average is insane. You put that in
Yes,
today's game,
that
and
is
it's
crazy.
yeah. He had 55 homers. That dude, that dude could play ball.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely like that pick. A lot of people, I'm sure, are probably kind of like me. They think of him more with the Giants, but yeah, I mean he played well with the Reds. That is a great pull right there.
Yeah.
That's a
Uh,
great pull.
so I mean, guys, you guys really you guys went all out for this post. I do love that. You guys went all out, gave us some answers. A lot of the same answers. Um, but we really do appreciate that. One person. I was actually very disappointed in you guys, to be honest. I thought I would see more of a name pop in. Joey Votto was only mentioned once in the three groups that I made, or three group posts that I made, and Joey
I
Votto
think
was mentioned once.
so. He popped up in my mind. But at the end of the day, look at the success that we've had of guys at first base: Nate Lowe, uh, and Sal Stewart, and then you have Spencer Steer, who plays great defensively at first and has been having a resurgence year now that he's healthy this season. Um, yeah, I would love to have Otto on the team, but I also understand. I would assume that this is where a lot of people were coming from. It may not necessarily be our biggest need on the team right now. We have other things that we definitely need to figure out, but you would never, hear me complain about, bringing Joey Votto in on this current ball club.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Ted Kowalski, he got mentioned too.
Oh, Clue.
As a option for first base. I like that pick too. He was really good in '90. He had a really good season in '90. Um, believe it or not, I don't agree with this pick at all. But I would say when he played on the Reds, he was good. Jonathan India, what's your take on Jonathan India and bringing him back in this lineup?
I I got MLB The Show in March. I loaded up franchise mode, and I traded Brady Singer back to the Royals for Jonathan India.
Mm-hmm.
um, I was at work when the news broke that trade happened
Yeah,
to send him to Kansas City. It ruined my entire day, probably my entire week. Um, India's numbers with the Reds very up and down. He had some injury issues. I believe what was it? Plantar fasciitis,
yeah,
I think it was. Um, so he had some issues injury wise a little bit, but the dude would go out there and he would just play. He could have been banged up, he could have been injured a little bit, but the dude would go out there, and if he was able to, he was going to put on that uniform and play the best that he could. He was a grinder. Um, Even if he wasn't having success that given year in a certain area, whether it is offense or defense, he was always trying to improve himself and play better for us. That rookie of the year that he won in 2021, it looked like he was going to be that new face of the franchise. Unfortunately, some stuff derailed that, but as bad as many may have thought that he was later on with the Reds, his last year was his second best year with the ball club. He had 248 with 15 homers, 58 RBIs, and he had 13 steals and only 2 caught stealing. He had a career high of walks with 80, and he only struck out 125 times.
right.
Again, love India. Absolutely love Jonathan India, and I would love to see him on the ball club right now. I know the whole reason why he was sent away was because, you know, McLean was going to be coming back last year, and he was going to be, he looked to be healthy, so we didn't really have a spot for India at that point. But again, even if it was in a bench role, the energy that he brings, the leadership abilities that he has, I think it would fit in with the clubhouse that we currently have, in part because he's part of what formed that camaraderie and the environment that clubhouse has right now.
Right.
Steer and guys like Steer and Friedel and Stevenson, they're carrying it on, but he was part of what helped form that, and he was a part of that 2021 team where we had a great season, came up just short of making the postseason. My opinion, that's probably one of the best offensive teams that the Reds have had since I've been watching. Um, the only problem was our bullpen that year, really. Um, yeah, I mean, India, a veteran leader, and in my opinion, I think he could still ball out if healthy and if we put him back in Cincinnati.
So, before we close out the episode, guys, and I go into the next 6 games, I just want to thank you guys 110% for the amount of views on our Facebook page. In the last 28 days, we have over 25,000 views, which me and Chandler at the beginning, we were building something 1,010%. We didn't know, at least I didn't know it was going to turn into 25,000 views in this amount of time. We are doing really well, and we love when you guys engage and everything like that. So the next 6 games, these are, I would say, our next series is not a, how can I put this? Not a must win, but if we win, I will be shocked. I will be brutally honest with you guys. As a Reds fan, I will be brutally honest that we might get smoked in this next series. But it's okay. It's okay. We always bounce back. But we have the Braves and we have the Royals. Braves have the best record in baseball right now. That's why I said that. And we have kind of our back half of the rotation going in that. We have Paddock, Singer, and Lodolo. And then in the Royals series, we have Burns, Abbott, and Paddock. What do you think we can do, Chandler? I know your second favorite team is the Braves, but what do you think we can do to get wins in that Braves series?
So one big key thing that I can immediately bring up, because we talked about it earlier, right? Take advantage of guys that are on base. Take advantage of guys that are in scoring position. Um, the Braves, probably their biggest strong suit this year, with all the success that they've had, is their pitching staff. If we can get to their pitching staff, not just if we can hit off of them, but going back to what we were saying earlier, right? Extend those at bats, run up the pitch counts, draw walks, really test their pitching staff, make them work. That's going to be, I would say, the biggest key. Their offense has had their own struggles. Um, I think our pitching rotation might be able to do a well enough job to fight against them. Um, I'm more concerned with our offense and facing that pitching staff that they have, just putting together some good at bats, right, and trying to get results in whatever ways that you possibly can in those scenarios.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. Sunday's going to be rough. Sunday's going to be rough.
Yeah,
I
Spencer
mean,
Strider.
there's a chance that we would see it. We might see a no hitter, and it's not out of the question. But I know you like the Braves and everything like that. That's your second favorite team, but I'm not a fan of the Braves. I hate the Braves. But yeah, guys, those are the next 2 series. Um, we are not too sure about the Royals series. We're just going based off of uh previous rotations and everything like that. So I really do think that's the rotation for the Royals series. Just going based off of previous series. Burns, Abbott, and Paddock. If Byrne and Abbott get a quality start, you might see Paddock throw pretty dang good in that last game. It all depends on how Burns and Abbott do. I don't see a problem with Burns at all. Burns has been throwing really well, and I really think
Yeah,
he could start that series off right.
I think he'll have a solid chance against the Braves offense. I mean, like I said, they've had some struggles in their own right. Um, they, just from an offensive standpoint, I mean, in no way would I say that their offense has been like terrible, but it's been a bit up and down through their lineup kind of like how it's been for our lineup. You have Michael Harris, Drake Baldwin, Matt Olson, and Jorge Mateo so far. And that's pretty much been their sole core of their offense so far this season. Notice that I didn't mention Austin Riley. Albies has been having a solid season, but he's not, one of their big players this year. And I also didn't mention their star Ronald Acuna Jr. because he's struggling this year. So we get to reunite with former Red Kyle Farmer this series, former Red Raisel Iglesias on the mound. Um, yeah,
So many
we
Reds.
definitely, yeah, we want to get into a spot where if we can wear down that pitching staff the first two games, even if we have a rough start that last game of the series, we could potentially battle against that pitching staff and have a little bit more success than we would the first two games just because of how worn out they would be by then. If we do give up 5 runs that game, maybe our offense is able to score, 7 or 8 runs, just looking at the long play of things, trying to figure out a strategy where we could have the most success that we could possibly have in this series. But like we both mentioned, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough series, and that's not just for the Reds. It's also going to be a tough series for the Braves. I think they know that. Um, One thing that I did see here recently, the Reds have an immensely terrible record um, against teams that are above 500 this year. So you look at our standings. We're in 4th place currently.
Yep.
Here's some big takeaways. Every team in the National League Central is above 500 right now, right? We all know about that. We're the only division in baseball that's set up that way. The Reds have been extremely lucky to be in that position so far. Reason why I say that is every team in the NL Central also has a winning record against teams that are 500 or greater.
Right.
The Brewers are 23-12. The Cubs are 25-20. Cardinals are 17-13. The Pirates are 20-19. The Reds are 8-16 against teams that are 500 or greater. Um, we have a minus 26 run differential. Only the Reds and Cardinals have a negative run differential in the NL Central currently, and the Reds are at the bottom of that list. The Reds ultimately have had an easier schedule than a lot of the other teams in our division.
Yeah, I'm not
We've
gonna
had the
argue that.
least we've had the least amount of games played against teams that are at least at 500. Um so when you look at some of the series that we've had so far this year, we faced the Marlins and the Mets and the Giants, um, the Red Sox, the Tigers, the Astros, the Angels. Just look at some of those teams that we faced. All those teams that I've mentioned, they're below 500. And we've talked about in the previous, episodes, the struggles that we've had against the Cubs and Pirates, for example, right? We need to have more success against teams that are 500 or greater. Uh, Otherwise, we're not gonna be able to have that success down the stretch. If this is our current setup during our easy schedule part of the year, what happens when we get into the more competitive, the higher level ball clubs? I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. We're 29-26. We have a winning record right now. We can be happy with that. But we also need to be realistic and understand where we need to improve, and the fact that we are not a perfect ball club by any means. And in this highly competitive division that we have this year, the schedules are different than they used to be. When you and I first started watching baseball, I was looking at it I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago. They used anywhere in between like a third and half of the games that the Reds would play back in like 2010. They were against the NL Central teams, right? It used to mean a lot more, your performance against your own division rivals. Now the schedule is different, so you're playing more teams throughout the year. So that's actually helping us right now.
Yeah.
Right? If we had all of our games against NL Central opponents this year, our record would not be good whatsoever. So we're getting bailed out by that. But again, when we move into these harder parts of the schedule, we need to get it together now so that we can compete then.
Right. And I think they changed that back in 23, if I believe, where every team
Yeah,
plays every team.
yeah.
Because
I think it's you play everybody. Is it just at least once or is it
yeah,
twice? I want to say the ideal scenario is everybody plays each other twice. You used to play all of the in intra division rivals, like you would play those guys in like 4 or 5 series a year. I think now it's like 3 to 4 series a year. So we don't have to worry about facing the Pirates, over and over and over again. But also, every team being above 500 in the NL Central, that means all of those guys, if they're not in first place at that given point, they're also a wild card contender.
right.
So
And
if we don't win the division, we need to be able to get a wild card spot. It is not going to be easy. And what did we see last year? We took a series against the Mets, and then that allowed us to get to the postseason when the Mets finished with the same record as us because we already held that over them. If it wasn't for us holding that over them, the Mets would have been in and we wouldn't have been. So if we run into a same scenario like that and it's one of our division rivals, it would be nice to have, some series one against those guys so we already have that leverage over them. So we don't have to go to a tiebreaker game or anything like that.
so, I mean, guys, let us know what you think for sure. Um, if you guys have any questions, opinions, anything like that, feel free to message us. Like I
I'll
said,
I'll also I'll also mention this. Um, I'll make a post about it here shortly. But I also want to get your guys' thoughts on the collective bargaining agreement coming up next year. Um, the Players Association has mentioned some stuff. They want the minimum salary brought up from 780K to 1.5 million. That's league minimum, right? Dude gets called up from AAA. We don't know how he's going to perform. He's already getting paid $1.5 million, so they're wanting to double it. Um, the competitive integrity tax, they want to penalize teams that aren't spending, for example, $150 million on their payroll. Luxury tax threshold, they want to bring that up from 244 million to 300 million. Somebody did the math. That would approximately make or give the Dodgers about $70 million more to spend in a given year. So it would make our current scenario worse, right? Expanded free agency for players with 5+ years of service time and they're 30 years old. So instead of waiting until 6 full years of service time, regardless, it would allow those guys to hit free agency earlier if they were already 30 years old and they had 5 years of service time. Increased revenue sharing for small market clubs, including $240 million guaranteed annually. and an expanded draft lottery and incentives for low revenue teams to compete. The MLB proposal to the owners, um, so ownership has suggested a salary cap, right? Um, Currently, the MLB proposal is $245.3 million as a cap. Um, that is just a starting point. Obviously, through negotiations, it'll get brought up higher than that. And then the salary floor is $171.2 million. I'm sure that will drop through negotiations as well. I would expect something about $150 million floor and somewhere between a $275 million and $300 million ceiling. A revenue split 50-50 between the clubs and the players, which could be nice. And the local TV revenue would be fully centralized and shared equally. Um, so that's just some brief things of what they've announced over the last couple days. That collective bargaining agreement does expire December 1st of this year. So, give us your thoughts and opinions on what you would do, what you would suggest, what you would like to see, and also would you guys be willing to not have a Major League Baseball season in 2027 if it meant holding out to get some of the things that we may want to see to help balance the league out? Um, just whatever your guys' thoughts and opinions are, make sure to leave those in the comments, whether it's on here or on our social media pages.
Right. Yeah, and guys, we do really appreciate it. I can't say it enough. We appreciate all the support and love, engagement, everything like that. But yeah, if you guys like this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet. Um, Go check out our Facebook page. We post on there almost daily. We try to at least, but engage on there. Um, Send us messages, anything like that. We'll answer accordingly. You might get an answer from Chandler. You might get an answer from me. Depends on what it is. Who has knowledge on it? If it's a question, something you saw on social media today, and get our thoughts on it. But like I said, guys, if you like this episode, hit that like button, subscribe. And as Marty would say, this one belongs to the Reds, guys. See ya.